As an educational consultant, one of my main jobs is to get students and clients developing their own ideas, unique ideas, and getting comfortable and confident in expressing them. That's actually, it's quite hard to do, and I don't blame anybody who is reticent when it comes to expressing their ideas, because I certainly remember what I was like, especially before I went to Oxford. I remember kind of longing for debate and nuanced discussion about all sorts of different topics. What if I was reading, what was happening in the news when I was a teenager, and I wasn't really getting it at my state school. And I wasn't really getting it in the circles that I was running in at the time. And then when I got to Oxford, a lot of the people there, a lot of the students, they were already really used to debating. Because actually there is a bit of a skewed ratio when it comes to how many state school students get into Oxford and Cambridge and how many are like private schools, better education. I didn't go to a good school. And so I felt out of my depth. And for the first time in my life, I felt really intellectually insecure. And for me, it took me at least 2 years before I got confident developing my ideas, and it was really painful, really, really painful. Oxford was a very difficult university to attend. People that I know, friends, killed themselves. People dropped out left, right and centre. All my friends dropped out due to mental health issues, and they rusticated taking a year off. They wanted me to take a year off. So there was a lot of pain, and there was a lot of years involved in learning how to develop my own ideas and be confident in expressing them. And perhaps I didn't even come into my full ability to do that until several years after Oxford, when I travelled the world as an educational consultant. And I'm quite proud of the fact that I get my students, anybody who consults with me, I get them confident developing and expressing their ideas in a ridiculous amount of time. Like, I cut the curve down, the learning curve. I can get students going from being completely shy and unconfident in expressing themselves to 3, 4, 5 sessions later, that's only a few hours, just coming up with some of the best points, really compelling points, and really like passionately debating them. So I'm quite proud about that. And so I thought I'd just turn on the camera and off the top of my head give you a few tips about how you can develop your ideas and feel confident in expressing them. Now, all of my advice is kind of linked to one overarching piece of general advice, but we'll break it down and pivot off. And that advice is to read. Read deeply, read books that are over your head, and read with the view to answer a few questions. First, what is being said? How is it being said? So if you're reading Plato's Republic, keep this idea in mind, and I'm going to quote Stephen Covey from a great book called 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Seek first to understand, then seek to be understood. A lot of people get it twisted, and a lot of people don't actually listen to other people. This is what makes you a good conversationalist as well. When someone's talking to you, rather than thinking about the thing that you want to say, listen and just go, can I understand what they're saying? And if they use a word, I don't know, money, race, gender, love, success, you've got to realise that these words don't mean the same thing to everybody. Everybody's got slightly different nuance, different colour, different shade, different meaning. So you've got to really try to understand, what do you mean by what you're saying? Really break it down. So I want you to do a lot of reading. Read the great books. Read stuff that's diverse in many different realms, diverse of thought, diverse of background. Read classics. Read philosophy. Read religion. Even read politics, law, history, anything you're interested in or not interested in, science, art, and then keep asking yourself. Try and understand what is being said. Only then can you formulate your ideas. You need to understand first, and then that makes it what comes next so much easier. And while you're reading, get used to dirtying the page. Now, I used to never like to dirty my page, and then I fell in love with this idea of marginalia. That means like writing in the margins, writing your ideas, circling stuff. My books are filthy now, and I'm really proud of it, because I believe that you don't own a book until you mark it. Now, obviously, as I've said before, I'm not going to mark a gorgeous book like the Everyman collection, no. But if I've got a paperback, I will mark it and dog-ear it. I'll even tear pages out if I want. And that's me thinking on paper. And it's the best way to think, because you don't know what you think about a subject until you write about it, or until you express it. So not only do you have to write, but I'd say speak, record yourself speaking, do videos of you speaking, and get over this idea that you're going to sound silly. Now, the reason it took me so long to get over intellectual insecurity was because when I went to Oxford, people did laugh at me for my ideas. I'd say, come up with ideas, and the whole room would laugh. And then it took a long time to get over that, and then get ballsy enough, and then start saying stuff that was still silly, but people suddenly, because I said it with such confidence, people were really glad. So understand, when you're coming up with ideas, be like a child playing around. You can be silly. Don't have any ego invested in it. Like, what is the worst thing if you come up with an idea that doesn't make much sense, or isn't correct, or, reveals a lack of understanding, the worst thing in the world is you go, oh, actually, that wasn't a good idea, was it? And then you just roll with it, and it's iterative, and you adapt, and you evolve, and you improve upon yourself, okay? And when you're just starting out, a good exercise is to come up with just the silliest ideas possible. But the best way to do this is to, when you're reading something, just highlight anything that interests you. You don't even have to know why it's interesting. It could be completely insignificant, but it's not until you start focusing in on stuff that you find whether it's insignificant or not. And I'll tell you, 80% of the time, my best points, my best tips come from following leads that, like a rabbit hole. Like, I don't know where it's going to go, and I follow it, and I trust the process, and I'm like a child at play. And I, you talk to children about their opinions. Go to a child, why is the sky blue? Oh, well, the sky's blue because... And then they just unravel all this nonsense, and they're so confident because nobody's knocked it out of them yet. Nobody said, oh, that's silly. Don't be so silly. People indulge children, and they have such imaginative powers. So you need to go back to that. Really pleasurable. Once you tap into your inner child, you'll feel your shoulders go, like that. And you'll be right most of the time because children aren't right about a lot of things, but they kind of are because they have intuition. Now, if you have learning and experience and you're an adult, add that to intuition, which most people block out, most people don't like gut response, then you're cooking. And that's what wisdom is: experience and intuition and a little bit of reading thrown in there. So you're reading books, you're going down rabbit holes, you're pursuing silly threads and trains of thought. And also, I would recommend watch debate shows. Like if you're in England, there's a show, it used to be called The Right Stuff, but now it's called Jeremy Vine. And usually it's the topic of the day. You have anywhere from 3 to 10 different topics. And there's a panel of people all with conflicting opinions. And there's a debate going on. And this is really valuable. Try to argue devil's advocate for everything. You don't have to be shitty about it, but try to challenge yourself. And if you can't see the other side, that's a warning sign that you need to try harder to see the other side. I mean, kudos to you if you can automatically see both sides. That probably means your thoughts on a certain issue are relatively nuanced and well thought out and not problematic at all. But if you can't see the opposing side, make sure you can. That's a real, very, very valuable skill that people have lost today. People just have tunnel vision and they think, this is my opinion, I'm emotional about it, I'm right, and I have to prove the other person wrong. Look, the first way you prove another person wrong, this isn't a video on how to debate or win arguments. We can do that if you like, because I'm okay at doing that. What you need to do if you want to win an argument is you have to see things from the point of view of the person that you're arguing with. It's kind of like when you're a writer and you're writing fiction. The most terrifying villains are the ones you sympathise with. So a writing exercise for screenwriters and novelists is to write big, long interior monologues from the villain's point of view and try to make them extremely convincing what they're doing. That's scary. That's why Hannibal Lecter's scary. We root for Hannibal Lecter in Silence of the Lambs. That's why they did such a good job at casting the other and showing him as the villain, as ally. And now another thing to keep in mind when you're doing all this reading is try to read synoptically. There's lots of different styles of reading, levels, and they get deeper and deeper. Some are surface, some are observational, some are analytical, and synoptic is like the holy grail of reading. That basically means, it means a lot of things. And if you read one of my favourite books, it's called How to Read a Book by Mortimer Adler. Amazing, highly recommended. Got a link in the description below. If you read that book, you'll learn how to do all these different types of reading. But synoptic reading, more or less, is about tying what you're reading now to everything else that you know, everything else that you read. You'll bring in other people, other conversations into the book with you, and everything's connected. And you make these ideas sticky, and you make leaps, and you go, oh, I'm reading Nietzsche. What does Montaigne have to say that Nietzsche might agree with? And let's throw Shakespeare in there, because I saw a Shakespeare play. How would Shakespeare agree or disagree with these ideas? How would he also cast the same themes? How would he sculpt them and present them artistically? This is how you got to start thinking. Bring all multimedia sources in with you. If you're reading the book, Frankenstein, well, maybe listen to some classical music, tie it together. You might not be able to, but you might. Go to an art gallery. You need to stuff your head with lots and lots of stuff and give lots of latching on points for different things. And that makes you, you can literally, not literally, I'm being a bit silly here, but you can actually feel the neuroplasticity developing in your brain when you do stuff like that. It's much better than brain games. Although, while we're on the subject briefly of brain games, a lot of them aren't very good for developing ideas. But if you want to learn how to think laterally, I think chess is a wonderful idea to pursue that. And I would highly recommend, if you don't already know how to play chess, to check out the Garry Kasparov Chess Masterclass. fabulous. I got a link in the description below that will give you a free trial, so just test it out. That was my favourite one, and it really got my brain firing on all different levels. Another thing you want to do is maybe bring in a sort of meditative practice. Like I do the Wim Hof method, which is a type of deep diaphragmatic breathing where you flood your body with oxygen, you make your blood like alkaline. That's really good. If you want to learn more about that, I got a link in the description below. But you could do anything. You could grab an app. I'm not a fan of Headspace, but a lot of people like it. You could make exercise your meditation. Running is good. I like to go and do a weekly long run, like literally just run for 2-3 hours, and that's really good to sort of get out of your head a little bit, and you get all these ideas when you're doing cardio. Like there's science behind it, and it's the sort of science that we'll talk about in my upcoming course, how to hack your academic performance through diet and exercise. But I definitely, if you're not already working out consistently, throw some cardio in there, maybe do a bit of weight training. You could take up a sport, you could do some stretching, just get the body moving and get confident in your body, because the mind and the body are intertwined, in my opinion. Now, whenever you're thinking about different things, try to always examine underlying assumptions. This is something that I do with my students who are sitting the TSA, the Thinking Skills Assessment, which is an entrance exam for Oxford for those doing PPE, philosophy, politics, economics. And so how do you examine underlying assumptions, right? So these are some questions from a test paper. Let's see. Should convicted criminals be allowed to vote? And then the way you examine underlying assumptions is you have to tear apart all the words, like criminal. What does criminal mean? Who designates what criminal means? What does the justice system look like? What is the due process? Allowed. Let's talk about allowance. Let's talk about freedom. Let's extrapolate and go backwards and go, well, this individual, if this individual isn't allowed freedom, is that reflective of a wider, lesser freedom or more freedom? Talk about convicted. What does conviction look like? Should. Is that a moral should, or is it logistical? Again, this doesn't really make any sense. I'm just showing how to pull things apart and see the machinery of how things work. There's another question here from a TSA paper. Is reducing inequality always a good thing? Now, look at the language. Inequality. Firstly, you have to understand what equality means, so define it. That's how you examine underlying assumptions. You go, right, well, I'm assuming equality means this, this, and this. It doesn't mean this. Therefore, inequality means this, this, and this, not this. And then reducing, like, how do you measure it? Firstly, the assumption here is that you can reduce it, and it's almost like a liquid, and you can. So how do you measure it? That's a very important thing that you'd need to know for that. Always. And good. What does good mean? Like, what type of morality are we tapping into here? Is it morality in an Aristotelian sense? Like, what does Aristotle have to say about good? Or go on a little wild goose chase. I say that because there's never really any concrete answer, but go figure out, what does good mean? What does bad mean? Do you need to have good? Is good necessarily good? Like, sometimes it becomes a bit absurd and it becomes very abstract, but these are really good sort of exercises. And if you want more exercises, another book that I would recommend is called A Whack on the Side of the Head. A whack on the side of the head just has loads of like brain teasers that get your brain working in really new and nuanced ways. Like, for example, this exercise, take a minute and see if you can think of at least 7 major cities that begin with the letter M. This is the sort of stuff I do in the shower in the morning. I'll think of like different objects. I'll go through the alphabet, A, B, C, D, A. Okay, axe. What does an axe feel like? What's the weight in my hand? Is it cold? What does the wood feel like? What's the metal feel like? What's the shape? What's the colour? Does it smell? Or does the bit smell like wood and one smell like metal? Then B, brick. Okay, think of the dimensions of brick. Think about how heavy it is. This is really making your visual spatial more robust, and it's just a good warm-up for the day. And it's like, if you're serious about life, you've got to treat life kind of like an athlete. And what does an athlete do? An athlete warms up for the big game, and each day you've got the big game. You might be a student and you're doing some studies. Warm yourself up. Or maybe you're a business person and you want to have a good day. Warm yourself up. So you're just like an athlete. And this book has a couple of... I'll show you a few more exercises. The book gives more exercises. Here's just a few examples so you can see the kind of things, the ways you think. Some lateral thinking problems. Can you come up with more than one right answer for each of them? Force yourself to go beyond them. Now, something you can do every day is just force yourself to come up with 10 ideas. I got this from James Altucher. He wrote a great book called Choose Yourself. And obviously, if you brainstorm like 3 ways to make Amazon better, or 3 ways I can improve my health today, it could be anything. 3 reasons dogs are better than cats. Controversial. 3 is easy. But forcing yourself to always go to 10 really pushes you into that creative zone, and you'll get some stinkers, but you'll find by the number 8, 9, 10 where you didn't think you could get more than 5, those are actually the best ones because you're digging into somewhere relatively untapped by most humans. But look, here's some lateral thinking problems. 5 beautiful and well-dressed women are standing in a tight group. One is crying and she has never been happier. The other 4 are smiling and they have never been more disappointed. Why? And then, okay, you've probably immediately got a couple of ideas. Oh, that's because of this. No, what's the next one? Come up with another one and another one. Push yourself to be really like nuts off the wall. This is the sort of stuff you do in the morning while you're getting dressed, while you're walking somewhere, maybe to get your coffee and brushing your teeth. Here's another one. Hector is guilty of no crime, but he's surrounded by 4 uniformed men, one of whom hits him until he cries. Why? Let's dig out another one. Oh, this is really cool. Put in 2 different job fields together and saying what could they learn from one another. For example, a bus driver and a comedian. What could they learn from one another? A beautician and an insurance salesman. Or, hey, a priest and the head waiter at a fancy restaurant. A fisherman and a fashion designer. So it's good. I would recommend get that book and just do a couple of brain sort of exercises each day. Treat them as a warm-up for your day. And then not only that, you could, again, it depends if you have good friends, good family, good loved ones, you can start talking about all this stuff with them, which is, bringing it into the real world. And you always get better when you practice. So always try to sort of lovingly start discourses with people and start, maybe challenge people a bit lightly and try to sharpen your ideas in real time. So those are just a few tips on me on how to develop your ideas and hopefully be more confident in expressing them. I want you to be confident in expressing your ideas because, believe it, you have valuable ideas inside you. Everybody does. You definitely do. If you're the sort of person watching this video, you already do. You just need that little confidence boost. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. And if you did, please hit the like button and subscribe because that tells me to keep making more videos. Have a lovely day.